Welcome to the Strategic Momentum Podcast. I'm your host, Connie Steele. Every month, I'll be sharing the perspectives from forward-thinking executives and how they've been able to break through their business inertia and how that's moved their business forward. These progressive leaders reflect a variety of roles and industries because getting valuable insights should and do come from everywhere. In today's inaugural episode, we will be speaking with Kareen Walsh, the founder of Revampologist, a results-driven, solutions-oriented consulting firm that focuses on transformation through people, process, and technology. Thanks, Kareen, for joining us today.
Thanks, Connie, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So your company provides a very interesting approach in that it blends not just strategy consulting, but also performance coaching. So tell me about what led you to start this type of business.
I was an executive for a while and grew within different companies up the corporate ladder as most do when you're an overachiever or just want to find success and title, right? Like we all kind of had that chase at times. And I realized that as much as I can give, produce, excel, and grow, being a part of one firm felt limiting to me. So as much as I had amazing experience working for great companies, I found that I had a calling to basically kick off my own consulting firm and see how many companies I can impact with the different exposure and experience I have, but also to feed my need for diversity and something new and change. I thrive in those environments. So that's basically how I decided to go and build my own consulting practice, was so that I could impact more companies and people and individuals and also grow myself. So the personal and professional development then became my journey as I work with the clients that I have.
That's great. And I think a lot of people don't always think about what is most fulfilling for them in their career, where it's not just the professional skills development, but personally, what do you feel you can do? What kind of impact you can make? And so what I love about your company, I love about, what Revampologist stands for is that notion of unleash, empower, evolve, is that a lot of companies today are looking to figure out how they can make that impact. But there are a lot of challenges that seem to inhibit them from, creating that necessary impact to move their business forward. So now that you've been doing this for some time, working with all different kinds of clients, what do you feel are the most common challenges that have inhibited your clients from really moving their business forward? You're that change agent, so you see all these things that are creating barriers for them. What do you feel it is that is creating that inertia?
It's an interesting question because my approach, as you said, it brings in, people, process, and technology. And any environment I walk into, I always go through a bit of an assessment phase, whether it's an assessment of soft skills of the team, an assessment of the leadership style and the actual strategy, if there is one. Because as you know, being in the same field, sometimes there isn't one. And people are chartering towards this nebulous goal that maybe was set far back and needed to be reset. So I'll go in and I'll assess what are they all chartering towards. And then I look at the technology and the process to see how aligned it is with what those end goals are. And a lot of the times the challenge is that there are gaps in not only the direction the company is headed, but also the communication and how the teams align with what those set goals are, or even the leadership team is sometimes siloed and they're not even talking to each other, depending on how large the company is. I mean, my exposure has been from startups, brand new founders, and helping them form what they need to get things done. And so that's a challenge in itself, right? Like it's figuring out not only their product or their service they're trying to provide, but then how do they come together as a leadership team to build and grow the team that represents where they are as a startup, and then when they are as they grow up, right?
Right.
And then when you get into large corporations, those are the mammoths of deep process and red tape and team and politics dynamics, where sometimes it's about breaking the barriers of communication and bringing in more of a cohesive approach. across, verticals and horizontals to make sure that the delivery is actually aligned. So, the challenges vary, but it always falls within one of the three buckets: people, process, technology. It's the way I approach it in a holistic view, so that then we can work with the team to make sure, and the leaders to make sure that they're performing their best towards what they say they want to accomplish.
So one theme that I continually hear is alignment, right? So because there are inevitably gaps, which you and I constantly see, given what we do, and it really requires alignment across the board. So let's actually break that a little further when the challenge and the solutions really fall around sort of the three prongs of your people, process, and technology. Let's start with people. So tell me a little bit more, and let's get deeper into how you're able to create alignment on the people front.
So as I started to build my career, I realized as a leader, as a manager, as an owner of something, I needed to make sure that those who were employed, whether it was my client employing them or me bringing in my team, needed to fit. And what I mean by fit is that each environment has its own unique culture. It has its own unique communication style. It has its own unique energy. And sometimes if you have the wrong fit, you cannot leverage the whole. And what I mean by that is, with the training I've done and going through and building more of a leadership executive coaching practice, I found that was necessary for me to have the right dialogue, not only with individual team members, but all the management layers as well. Because most of the time, I'd say the two blockers in achievement within a firm or in realization of what's real is fear and misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times that's the people side, right? Those are the soft skills. those don't come in tech, like fear doesn't exist in technology, right? Fear exists as an emotion within a person that then stops them from giving their best. Either they're stunted by a communication style of someone else they're working with, or they're stunted by a misunderstanding of the strategy they're aligned with, or they're stunted on their skill set. That's the big part about the people side. And my skill set as a coach and a mentor and an advisor is to draw out the fears so I can squash them, basically, because no one's got time for that.
Let's get to the point. Let's just squash it right now.
Yeah, well, in a very delicate, empathetic way. I mean, I'm not, you know what I mean? But if you talk to any of my clients, it's really about that personal connection that I'm able to create to then build leverage on how the team actually operates together. So I would say that skill set in my own personal development of honing in on my communication styles and how to be open, accepting, and receive it, and as well as deliver, is something that I assist teams with from the top down, bottom up, depending on where I feel the gaps are and where we need to kind of break the barriers of communication, but also get to the truth of what this team and what the individuals are able to do to either then help them grow into what the management or the company needs them to do. And sometimes it might be a decision to manage them out. And so it's such a dynamic piece, the people side of the triad, and it's to me the most value that I can bring to a company is that awareness, and then help them with an action plan on how to move them forward.
So that's, I think, the point that you had said that maybe one of the end outcomes is to sort of manage them out, which is not, the ideal situation. But I think that's a realistic outcome that companies really need to think about, is that if it's about trying to find the best fit, which creates the cohesiveness and then synergy for a team, you try to ensure that you've got the right people, but sometimes those people don't exist. So determining what fits, what doesn't fit is important. What I think would be also helpful for listeners is if you could give an example of how you get people to realize, the fit they either have or don't have. And also, how do they even recognize that this is the fear, or these are sort of the barriers that they personally themselves have been creating, maybe in their own mind, or maybe there are things that other people see that they don't, and help them get through that realization. Like, all right, I understand what's keeping me from realizing the potential, and then moving them forward. So a quick example I think would be great.
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting. First of all, it takes time. None of these decisions should ever be rushed because you really want to get to the root of how does this individual show up every day, and how does it impact the team as a whole as it aligns to what this company is trying to accomplish. And sometimes it's actually at the leadership level where I need to work and dig deep, because it's potentially the wrong leader in place that doesn't even really want to be there, and that is why there's dysfunction. I mean, it's actually quite constant that I first show up to assist in delivering something, right? Like it's either a project or initiative that has gone off the rails, and they need assistance in bringing it back, because for a long time, my reputation was kind of being the closer, or like, the fixer, the recovery person. Mm-hmm. And so then I was, because of most of my clients are through references, or someone recommending that someone work with me or bring me in. It was to generally recover something. So already we know if things are in disarray or things are not on course. And being a third party to come in and be the almost not only the advisor, but sometimes the scapegoat for hard decisions, I'm also able to build immediate trust, because I'm not part of the politics. And in that, when I'm doing my assessment of, okay, yes, there's this thing that needs to get delivered, great. Like that's easy to align because it's a thing. It's, it's technology. It's a product enhancement for a client. It's, whatever that looks like, right? But to get to the root of the why it went off the rails or what needs to be enhanced, it comes down to the people in the process. So when I assess the team, I meet with everybody one-on-one, because I want to build a one-on-one relationship to understand each individual's agenda and also skill set. And when I understand that, and then I meet with a leadership team to hear what is the desired outcome and how do they feel it needs to be done, and then also assess their skill set as a management team, as a leader, as a manager of it. Are they even invested? Are they interested? Or are they just trying to check something off the list because that's what their superiors ask them to do? There's so many dynamics when it comes to performance that I look at it all. And then when it really comes down to a repeat offender, I'll call it, meaning, and it's not to say that this person, an individual doesn't have the ability, but it could just be that they are not optimizing or growing or building up their skill set to move along with the change that's occurring within the firm. So whether it's the new product delivery or team dynamic, I'm always looking at that. And so the hard discussions then become really just placing it all out. Here's my feedback. This is what I see. And this is how I will work with my leaders. I say, if it were me, this is the skill set that I would want. And if I were to assess your team against this skill set that we need to deliver this or to create a high performing team, these are the gaps that I see across the individuals you have. Or these are the gaps, or these are the areas we need to improve upon. Do you think this individual would be willing to get trained? Can you afford to invest in them to get trained a certain way? Are you willing to change the dynamics so that it works better? There's so many different aspects, Connie. It's like, it's not an easy answer, but I would say I love the things that are not easy, because it means that everyone's going to grow from it,
Yes.
The managing outwards decision has happened at all levels. Like I've literally worked with executives one-on-one where they just know where they're at in their role in the company, and what they're asked to do is not a fit for them individually. Their actual agenda, their personal goals, their professional goals are completely different than the role they're in. and they have no idea how to navigate or have that discussion with their superiors. So I am able to have it with them and help guide them into the what's next, because nothing's worse than having someone who manages you or leads you uninterested in the job that they have or unable to help their team grow. And I think that that's a big problem we have today in most companies, is this middle management layer of mismanagement and misunderstanding.
Well, and so what I take away from everything that you just said is that it's almost taking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but by going in and doing the assessment, and it becomes so much of a data exercise. I think what a lot of folks may not realize of the things that we do is that when we do an assessment, it does become very data driven, because you are looking at a lot of different factors, different parameters that go into determining, in your case, sort of fit and alignment. So by documenting all these attributes that are core to what you feel determines a good fit around skill set and around, business agenda, you can then determine whether, the teams and the leadership are aligned within and also aligned across. And then by doing so, you can work with, whether it's an individual or a team, based on sort of the data that you've collected, to then move towards that right solution on that people front. Would that be fair to say as a summarization?
Yeah, that's a great way to summarize it, for sure.
To find more about Kareen Walsh and her firm Revampologist, go to www.revampologist.com. Tune in for part 2 of our 2-part Revampology series with Kareen Walsh. In the upcoming episode, we'll talk more about gaining alignment around process and technology, the other components of the business challenge triad. The Strategic Momentum podcast is produced by Flywheel Associates, a leading business strategy, marketing, and operations consultancy based in the Washington, D.C. area. To learn more about our services, visit us at www.flywheelassociates.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you tune in again soon.